Good afternoon, everybody. This is Melissa Thomas of Florida National News coming to you with your Tuesday edition of the FNN Politics and Power series. Today, we're going to interview Amrita Singh, who is currently running for Ninth Circuit Judge candidate. She's a candidate for Ninth Circuit Judge, Group 34. She is running against incumbent Judge Mike Kranick, excuse me. So for those of you who may not be familiar with Amrita Singh, want to know a little bit about her, here's a brief bio for you about her. So she is as close to an Orlando native as possible, not quite born here, but grew up here from a very, very young age. She attended the University of Central Florida. She is a graduate, so hashtag go Knights. She obtained a bachelor's in political science and a minor in philosophy there. And then she went on to attend law school in Orlando as well at the Florida A&M University's College of Law, where she obtained her law degree. So she's been practicing law since 2011. She previously owned and operated her own law practice. She also was involved in managing aerospace and defense contracts. And she also handles a variety of real estate transactions and even did a little bit of litigation, say that 5 times fast, with a national AM Law 200 law firm. And so she has grown up under the tutelage of a U.S. veteran and business owner father, a nurse mother, and of course, an older brother and larger extended family. And she is running for judge under the promise of serving her community. So we're going to get into all of those details here in the interview. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Ms. Amrita Singh. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me today.
No problem, no problem. So I ask everybody this, how have you been handling the pandemic so far? How have things been for you and your family?
We are doing very well. Early on, I think everybody was kind of hard pressed to know somebody who was directly affected. And soon enough, I became the person who was directly affected, as both of my parents actually had became infected with this terrible virus. My dad had a pretty bad bout, but my mom was even worse off. She developed COVID-related pneumonia and ended up in the hospital. Yeah, and I was just so surprised as far as how quickly that all happened. I mean, it was a matter of days, and she just had to go to the hospital. But they're both doing very much better, so I'm grateful for that. And it's just something that I don't wish on anybody. It's a tough thing, and it's just so crazy how some people affects different than others. So everybody just needs to be careful with it.
Absolutely. And how, since you are a candidate for judge, like how has this affected your campaigning, or has it at all? Kind of let us know a little bit about that.
Yeah, when I first registered to run, this was nowhere in sight as far as the pandemic. So I think we definitely had to pivot our strategy as far as reaching prospective voters, but everybody's in the same boat here, and I think everybody's doing what they can to make it work. So I think that using a digital platform is something that's just been a godsend, and as far as reaching out to the community and getting our message out. So that's something that we've definitely all just invited to get our message out.
And then we were just talking kind of before we went live about how you kind of become a guru, if you will, between all the different platforms that you've had to use. So, I mean, like, how has that process been for you in terms of like reaching out to the community? Like, how many virtual town halls have you had to be a part of, or different like interviews have you had to do?
Yeah, so I mean, definitely became very familiar with the Zoom, all the other platforms out there. It's been okay. We've made it work. It's not ideal. It's nice to be out in front of people, and I was prepared to do that. When I first registered to run. But I think that it's a way that I've been out there. We've been able to participate in a lot of different forum, town halls, interviews, a lot of different ways to get out in the community organizations that are interested in our race. So very grateful for technology and the platforms out there that are just making this happen.
And very quickly, give us your thoughts on how you've seen the Florida reopening process. Like, what are your thoughts on it, particularly now with the increase in cases, particularly now that the cases are happening to younger people and the debate about schools reopening? Kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, there's just so much that we don't know about this disease, how it infects people, the long-term damage of people. So, I think it's just best that everybody take precautions to ensure that we get over this as quickly as possible and get on with our lives, get the economy back to normal. I feel for all the parents out there who are having to choose between their children's education and their health and safety, as well as, balancing that whole thing with their own jobs, so it's an incredible, ask for really anybody. But, I think it's best that everybody just take their precautions they need to do in order for everybody to just move on and get past this.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, you guys know how the show goes. We always ask the sort of COVID-19 questions first to get all of that out the way, because we know that ain't pretty. And then we're going to take a quick commercial break and then get into sort of the meat and potatoes of the conversation, guys. We're going to talk to Ms. Singh about why she has chosen to run for judge and what her vision is for that role. So, everybody, stay tuned. We will be right back.
It takes experience to know the difference in property values. For example, this business is not the same as this business. And this house is definitely not the same as this house. And this, well, this is definitely not the same as this. And that's why it's important to have someone who understands true property appraisals to help our community grow, while making sure everyone pays their fair share. Because experience matters. Re-elect Rick Singh for Orange County Property Appraiser.
All right, guys, welcome back. We are with Amrita Singh, who is running for Ninth Circuit Judge. So, let's start right there. Like, why choose to run for Circuit Judge, and why in this particular time?
Yeah, I'm running because I've been a part of this community my entire life, and I think that it's a great way to give back to a community that's given me so much, from my education to my sense of belonging here in Central Florida. I've been able to gain a very unique perspective based on the life that I was born into and what I've done since that time. I was the first in my family actually to become an attorney, growing up in the culture of a family that came to this country with nothing as a first-generation American. So, I saw my parents at a young age, as having my brother and I when they were very young themselves, and they've grown into successful business owners in this community. My dad now serves as an elected official. So serving the community is something that I'm compelled to do in some way, and becoming a circuit judge in my community is just one way that I know that I can make a difference.
Awesome. And talk about your career as an attorney and how you'll be able to kind of incorporate the skills you learned from that experience into the role as judge, should you be elected to that role.
Yeah, most of my time spent in the courtroom has been handling civil litigation matters, most of which were pertaining to real estate issues, from contract disputes, landlord-tenant matters, timeshare litigation. I've handled a variety of legal issues brought before the court, as well as participated in many different types of alternative dispute resolutions. There was a time when I spent 4 to 5 days a week in court. So I learned a lot as a litigator. But as you mentioned in my intro, I have a variety of experience outside the courtroom as well, analyzing contracts, handling complex real estate transactions. And currently I handle administrative law matters for real estate licensees as Deputy Director for the Division of Real Estate. So all of this experience has benefited me by giving me a unique perspective that someone who has practiced solely in the courtroom doesn't necessarily have. I could spot issues in contracts from my transactional experience that a sole litigator might not realize. And I think that this perspective will carry over when I'm a judge. I'm very analytical in general, and it's helped me in my transactional career. So I think I'll be able to utilize these analytical skills as a judge. So currently, I'm also, as I mentioned, the deputy director for a division of around 60 employees. And so that management experience as well is something that I bring to the bench to help me work with others, as well as manage a docket in the most efficient way as possible. So all of this experience, I think, has really prepared me for this position.
Thanks for laying all that out. Definitely appreciate that. Now, for one of the main things that we like to do on the show is to educate our folks. Like that's the main thrust of this show for folks who want to get more politically engaged, but maybe have no clue who they're voting for, or they have like the voter guide and just kind of blankly fill in the bubbles. But educate our audience as to the role of a circuit judge and what you'll be doing. Like, should you be elected? Like, what the day-to-day duties are of a circuit judge. Kind of talk about that.
Yeah, I think judges are, to your point, I think judges are one of the most difficult races for people to make an educated decision on. So just to give you an outline of what a circuit judge is all about, there are 20 judicial circuits in Florida. Circuit courts have a general trial jurisdiction over matters that are not assigned by statute to the county courts. And they also hear appeals from county court cases. Some circuits are made up of multiple counties. We're here in the 9th Judicial Circuit, which is Orange. And we currently have 44 circuit judges here. The main divisions of the circuit court are broken up into different areas of law, you could say. There's business court, there's civil, there's criminal, there's domestic, there's juvenile, there's probate, and there's traffic. So a judge oversees the matters that are brought before them in their specific district, in their specific division. It's a nonpartisan position, and judges are expected to remain impartial in their overseeing of cases that are brought before them.
Gotcha. Hope everybody was taking notes on that. So almost a little bit like Schoolhouse Rock, just minus the music. But yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that breakdown, though. That's very important because, you know, as voters, it's important to know who we're voting for and what the role is that each person is filling. Because one of the things that we're hearing nationally too, even especially in this moment of upheaval, one of the biggest pushes is, all right, guys, everybody vote. Thank you for your protesting, but make sure you vote. And then the next question is, okay, who am I voting for? You know what I mean? So thank you for that breakdown for sure. And I noticed your platform message is primarily centered around serving the community. So after having laid everything out there, what you just mentioned as the role of a judge, what made you decide to choose serving the community from the bench versus perhaps serving in a more direct capacity, perhaps as a county commissioner or serving on a city council or even as a state representative or state senator? Like what made you make that distinction?
That's actually a really good question and an interesting one. It's important to realize, and I don't think a lot of people do, a judge is the only elected position that has a direct interaction and a direct impact one-on-one with somebody in the public. You have members of the public that come into the courtroom and they are interfacing one-on-one with that elected official. And it's the only position that really does that. So it's very important that we realize that distinction of the importance that the judiciary has. And therefore, by being a circuit judge, I rather than any of those other positions that you mentioned, I'll be able to have the most direct impact, quite literally, on my community by becoming a circuit judge. So that's really, the motivator by this specific position.
Got you. So, and I guess the difference there though is typically people enter into a courtroom usually when there's a problem. Is that correct? Or like there's some kind of dispute or something they have to fix, if you will, yeah. versus having their public comment in a city council meeting or in a board of commissioners meeting. So, I mean, what do you think the fine line is with that as well in terms of that direct contact with the community?
Well, beyond that one-on-one interaction that you might have with that specific individual, the decisions you make on that very local level, impacts your community, and in similar ways, I would say, to that of, a state representative or senator or county commissioner, in that, they make decisions. Hopefully they're founded on the basis of, solid law. But the decisions that they make are having a direct impact on that community. So, part of my platform is being part of the community, because to serve a community, you have to know that community. And I think that that's very important.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Makes sense. And in the meantime, guys, we are going to take another very brief commercial break. We're going to get into one other question that I do have for Amrita. It is tied to serving in the community, that sort of main marketing message push. But we'll be back, and I'll get into a little bit of that and talk a little bit more about how she'll impact the community. We will be right on back.
At Duke Energy, we deliver electricity and so much more, like free home energy assessments, rebates for energy-saving improvements, payment options to help you better manage your budget, and even bill credits for helping the community use less energy. So no matter what you're doing, we can help you make better energy choices every day. It's just another way we bring power to your life. How much can you save?
All right, guys, welcome back. We are with Amrita Singh. So to your point about affecting the community, serving the community from the bench, I just wanted to ask you very quickly, are you familiar with Judge Victoria Pratt? Have you ever heard that name before?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, so she's for those in the audience who aren't familiar with her, she's very well known for her process, what she calls procedural justice. She made that a very mainstream term, and what she did during her time as judge was work with Senator Cory Booker with the sort of alternative justice programs that were going on in New Jersey to kind of come up with alternative sentences instead of simply incarcerating folks. So I wanted to find out from you, Amrita, are you doing something, or do you envision yourself doing something similar should you be elected to the bench, to be able to affect the community in a way that could perhaps alter the course of folks who may be in trouble? Obviously, she was dealing more with youth and kind of juvenile delinquency on her end, but does your vision include ways to kind of alter the course of the way certain disputes or different conflicts would occur in the community?
Yeah, in general, I would fully support such a wonderful program like that. As a circuit judge, I'd gladly advocate for alternative programs where appropriate, and while respecting parties' discretion, budgetary concerns, and costs to the participants of those types of programs. In general, alternative dispute resolution and other methods of, other than the courtroom have gained widespread acceptance among both the general public and within the legal community. In the Ninth Judicial Circuit, many judges order that small claims cases, for example, have to be mediated at pretrial conference. And then I'll also say that due to the increasing caseload due to COVID-19, mediation, I think, is a way that parties can resolve cases quicker with fewer costs than litigation, and allows the participants to have greater control over their selection of the individual who will decide their dispute. And then to that point of the program overall, that of Miss Pratt, her methods of using other ways to deal with people who find themselves in the court system, I think it's fantastic, and I think that it's important that we realize the impact of mental health on individuals that find themselves in the system. So exploring that as well is something that I think is very important.
And to piggyback on what you just mentioned, particularly on mental health, what are your thoughts on what can be done for mental health here in Florida being pretty much at the bottom of the list, or 50th in the nation in terms of mental health services. Like, kind of give your thoughts on that and how that would play itself out in court.
Yeah, my mom is actually a mental health nurse practitioner, so very close, relation to this whole issue, and it's something that's very near and dear to my heart. I think that it's something that's so significant and so needed in our community in general. That's often overlooked for so many different reasons. So many people in our community right here in Central Florida, find themselves in legal trouble, but it's the foundation of their issue is a mental health issue. So you resolve that mental health problem, you really help that individual, but you help their legal problems as well. So that's something that I'll definitely be cognizant of as a member of the judiciary, and look at ways that we can, explore these options for individuals that are faced with these types of issues.
Gotcha. And now jumping on to a little more of the sort of procedural side of things, kind of tapping into the COVID-19 thing as well. Obviously the pandemic altered the process for the judiciary. Like a lot of the hearings had to be switched to something like this, to something kind of virtual. Do you personally believe that that's going to become a mainstay? Like, even when the state like fully reopens, the virus is completely contained and stabilized, do you think that's going to become a new norm? Or you think we're going to kind of revert to like only in-person kind of hearings?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball on that, but I can tell you that I really hope that happens. I, in general, am a bit of a techie, you could say. So I invite all methods of technology. They streamline things. They make things super efficient. So I think it's a way that we've kind of forced our hand in using this technology right now because we have no other choices, quite honestly. But, these are things that we've kind of just had the opportunity now to, real life play out. And we see that they're working. Yeah, there's a little bit of a hiccup here and there, but virtual hearings are things that I think are an excellent opportunity to improve the efficiency and the access of courts for people that otherwise wasn't there. So I'm all for it, for sure.
Cool. Now, jumping into a little more of the personal side of things, guys. You guys know I always ask all of our guests these questions just to kind of give you more of an insight into who they are as a person. So, Amrita, just kind of talk to us about what your typical motivations are. Like, what typically keeps you going on a day-to-day basis, particularly on the days that are tougher. Like, say, for instance, you have a case that is very difficult, or during the times you're dealing with the contracts, there's some misunderstandings, you're just kind of hitting a wall. Like, what is the thing that normally keeps you going?
Yeah, I'm a generally positive person. I keep a positive outlook. Even on stressful days, I think it's important that you keep in mind the overall objectives and goals that you have in life. And then also I look at obstacles as learning opportunities. So I think that helps keep me grounded and really keep things in perspective. I enjoy personal challenges and broadening my horizons. I do mountain biking and strength training. And I find that they're awesome ways to challenge myself and ways that I can do something that, helps me physically, but also you can see measurable improvements. So those are things that really motivate me on a personal level, I would say.
Awesome. And talk a little bit about your current position and what you feel is the best part of that job, like the most meaningful part of that job.
Yeah. Well, I would say that I right now I'm the deputy director for the Division of Real Estate. So we manage over 400,000 real estate licensees in the state. With that, there come nitty-gritty details as far as why a person is licensed, what are the obstacles to them becoming licensed. And then once they become licensed, we have the regulatory aspect of, what happens if they've done something that possibly they need to have their license taken away. So those are all aspects that I enjoy. And usually, the day-to-day activity of our office is pretty smooth running, but there comes a time when there's gray area issues, and those are the things that I love to swim in, to really explore, and that's something I think that draws me to running for judge as well. That opportunity to explore things that aren't crystal clear in black and white law, to interpret the law, interpret the intention of the law. Those are all very significant issues that I enjoy exploring.
And talk a little bit about, if you're at liberty to, depending on the case, but talk about a case that greatly impacted you in any of the various disciplines that you've been involved in.
Okay. One of the first cases I had in the courtroom comes to mind. It was an eviction case. I worked very hard to research the controlling legal authority. I knew the facts like the back of my hand, and I was ready to represent my client in court. When I arrived, however, I wasn't given the chance to fully argue my case, and it was a true wake-up call that the legal profession wasn't everything I'd always thought it would be. I knew that I should treat people fairly, but that experience of like one of the first cases that I had as a young attorney ingrained that philosophy into me, that you have to be unbiased and objective, while also being straightforward and reasonable to help ensure that people are heard. So that's something that's definitely stuck with me all throughout my legal career.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. All right, guys, we're going to take another quick commercial break, and we're going to talk about like the next steps. You guys know I like to ask all of our guests about this, given the upheaval in the country, and kind of get their thoughts on what they feel is the most effective next step for those of us as citizens to be able to do. So stay tuned. We will be right back.
At Taco John's, you can expect one thing: so good. As in quality ingredients used in tacos and burritos made just for you. Every single bite.
So good.
Expect nothing less at Taco John's.
Told y'all to be a quick break. Like playing that one. That's really brief. But so Amrita, we like to ask our guests about what to do in the wake of George Floyd's death, and kind of talk about kind of going beyond the protesting. Like, what are the most effective ways for people to create change or to see change in their communities, or even on a larger scale? So what are your thoughts on what people should do in terms of fruitfully and effectively making change?
Yeah, this is a very important issue that's at the forefront of our society right now. I think it's important that people get involved, speak up for one another. As Gandhi says, be the change that you'd like to see in the world. I was probably one of the first of the judicial candidates in the circuit to speak up when the protest started. And I felt it was important to express my solidarity with individuals who were speaking out in anger and frustration at acts of racism, as well as express appreciation for our law enforcement who are protecting those who are peacefully protesting to express their right to free speech. So these are issues that are very at the forefront of everybody, and things that I think are going to make significant impacts in how we move forward as a society. So I think it's very important that people are already starting to speak up, but continue to speak up and voice what's right. I think everybody has an idea of what's right, and they need to speak up about it.
And I guess a follow-up question to that is there an effective way, based on what you're saying in terms of, appreciating both sides, because the debate is kind of polarized. Is there an effective way to do that? Is there an effective way to show solidarity for one group of people while still acknowledging appreciation for the other, and still being able to effectively influence the community, influence others to kind of rally to your cause?
Yeah, for sure. I think that in order to resolve any issue, it's important that we take a step back and realize what somebody of a differing opinion, where they're coming from, and try to, look at their perspective on the issue in order to, if it's a misunderstanding, clear up that misunderstanding. If it's if it's an oversight, make sure that we can understand the basis of that difference in order to move forward. So that's foundational in any effort to resolve any issue, in my opinion. So I think that that's a significant way that we can move forward in this specific issue, is to really meet people at where they're at and build that foundation, and then build up from there.
Awesome. And this is a bonus question. It's not on the list, but given your growth in Orlando, like, what do you personally feel is a very positive change or growth that you've seen, and then an area of opportunity that you feel needs to be improved, that you can actually be instrumental in improving from the bench?
Ooh, that's interesting. Growing up in this community, I remember when St. Cloud and Kissimmee were cow pastures. And what it's become since then is just incredible. And being in Orlando, the growth that we've had here is incredible. But specific to your specific issue, LGBTQ community has seen significant growth, and the way that our community has really included them in society is something that I'm very proud of, being a Central Floridian, and something that I think our community rallies behind now. We've come a tremendous way in that regard, and something as far as something that room for improvement or opportunity for improvement. I think that specifically when it comes to the judiciary, something that I think is the forefront of my agenda is the access to courts, ensuring that the court system runs as efficiently as possible, is something that's very important to our community. We have an issue with a growing docket even before COVID-19 happened, and then with the courthouse being shut down, it's only gotten worse. So I think that it's important to have a judiciary that is open to innovative new ideas, that want to make the court system as efficient as possible, and utilize, as we mentioned before, different technology to do so, in order to make it as efficient as possible.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Well, guys, this is actually the briefest FNN Politics and Power interview that we've had. So, thank you, Amrita, for your time. We appreciate you. Is there anything that we didn't cover in the interview that you want to make sure the audience knows? Go ahead and share that.
Yeah, thank you. I would just say judicial elections are right around the corner. They're in the August primaries on August 18th. The deadline to register to vote is actually just next week on Monday, the July 20th. So I would just make sure to ask all the viewers out there to make sure you and your loved ones are registered to vote. Make sure you have elected to vote by mail, if you can do that, so that we can avoid any exposure during the pandemic. This is not just another election year. Judicial races are very important on a local level. And I think it's important that the judiciary consists of people from within our community, rather than those chosen for us by Tallahassee. So, with that, I'd like to thank you for your time. Sorry that this is one of the quickest interviews, but it was a pleasure. And you can find more about me by visiting my website. It's vote-sing, SINGH. Where you can get links to my social media and more. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you, Amrita, for taking the time to come on the show. And it's not a bad thing. You being the quickest one is not a bad thing at all. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show, sharing your platform, and educating our audience on what a circuit judge is responsible to do. Like, that is by far the most important thing that we definitely wanted to make sure our audience got that. So thank you for being the teacher for the day. We appreciate you so much.
My
Ladies
pleasure.
and yeah, absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for tuning in here at the FNN Politics and Power series. Of course, I will be back for your Thursday edition. I will be interviewing Tim Ayers of the West Lakes Partnership on Thursday. So be sure to tune in for that episode where we will continue to educate you guys on things that are going on in the community. He will be able to shed some light on the West Lakes community and the moves that the West Lakes Partnership have been making in the midst of the pandemic, so you guys can learn a little bit more about that. Plus, of course, more. You guys know we like to get a little deep on things and of course give you that kind of entree into the person as a whole. Now, if you haven't already, be sure to like us on Facebook. You can like us at Florida National News, FNN News Live, or FNN News TV. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube. You'll find us there at Florida National News as well. Be sure to click the bell so you get all notifications. And follow us on Instagram. You'll find us on Instagram at Florida National News as well. We wanted to make sure that we are as easy to find as possible. And later on this afternoon, just a quick programming note for you guys, I'll be back with the evening news rundown. You guys know how I do. I am here every single day at 5 p.m. with your evening news rundown. So be sure to catch your nice little briefing of the latest headlines. And it is Tuesday, so we have our special programming with our lovely Casey Hudson. She will be back with the FNN Sports Take. So it is now Tuesdays and Fridays at 8 p.m. Be sure to mark that in your calendar. And since it is Tuesday at 5 p.m. during the evening news rundown, you will catch our lovely Jamesia Stoudemire with your entertainment 4 for 4. Now, if you're someone who is a business owner and you want to advertise on any of our shows, whether that's the evening news rundown, the FNN Politics and Power series here, our Entertainment Buzz show on Fridays, whichever program you feel the need to advertise on, or maybe all of them, please be sure to email us at ads@floridanationalnews.com. We are accepting advertising, so you can shoot us an email to find out more about that. In the meantime, thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Tuesday edition of FNN Politics and Power. I will catch you again at 5 p.m. for the evening news rundown. Take care.